Mabuhay everyone! So we are in the fourth group. We're going to tackle Romantic period from the year 1790 to 1850. Next slide please. The Romantic period, also known as Romanticism, was an artistic, literary, and intellectual movement that began in Europe at the end of the 18th century and peaked between 1800s and 1850. Here's the timeline of the key events and figures during the Romantic period. Next slide, please. First, in 1794, Francisco Goya or Francisco Jose de Goya y Lucientesis is considered the most important Spanish artist of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. His paintings, drawings, and engravings reflected contemporary historical upheavals and influenced important 19th and 20th century painters. Next slide, please. So that's his art. Goya is often referred to as the last of the old masters and the first of the moderns. In the picture that names the Yard with Lunatics, it is one of the string of dark paintings concerned with madness and fantastical nightmares. The painting reflects Goya's own mental breakdown, which occurred shortly after France declared war on Spain. Next slide, please.
And now let's proceed to the year 1798, which is the year when the book Lyrical Ballads was published under Samuel Taylor Coleridge together with William Wordsworth. But let me introduce first Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He is an English poet, literary critic, philosopher, and theologian who was a founder of Romantic movement in England. Next slide, please. While William Wordsworth, he was an English poet whose lyrical ballads, written together, as I've said, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, to help to launch the English Romantic movement. Next slide po. And now let's proceed to the lyrical ballad. It is a kind of poetry that blends aspect of ballads and lyric poetry. It is a frequently distinguished by its emphasis on the narrative and emotional expression. This book serves as a signal of the beginning of English Romanticism. It was a response to the ideas and styles found in literature written between 1660 to 1798. Next slide po. William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge developed a new style of poetry that differed from the neoclassical form, which is the lyrical ballads, that emphasizes strong emotions and personal experiences while using simple language so that everyone could understand. Unlike the neoclassical form, which was stricter when it comes to um, which was stricter when it comes to poetic structures and only focusing on universal truth. The book by Wordsworth and Coleridge allowed for more natural expression and creativity. Their approach made poetry more relatable and meaningful, helping to shape the Romantic movement and connect poets more closely with the readers. And all in all, the book Lyrical Ballads emphasized the importance of using poetic language that can connect to the nature and everyday experience of the people. Next slide.
Next is we have August Wilhelm von Schlegel's influence. August, he was born September 8, 1767 in Hanover, Germany and died May 1845 in Bonn, Germany. In the German Romantic movement, August Wilhelm von Schlegel played a key part on influencing language study as well as literature. If you're wondering what is German Romantic movement, created in the late 18th and 19th centuries. It emphasized feelings, nature, and the importance of individual experience over logic and reason. One of Schlegel's work, which is the Lectures on Dramatic Art and Literature, influenced romantic ideas on art, individual expression, and imagination. Schlegel was also an expert in languages, history, and literature, shaping the development of comparative literature and Sanskrit studies. One of his important works was his translation of Shakespeare's plays into German, which highlighted themes of emotion, individualism, and the depth of human experience. These themes were central to the Romantic movement's focus on personalized expression and the inner world. Schlegel's influence spread beyond Germany, impacting intellectual thought in Britain as well. His work left a lasting legacy in both literature and the study of languages. Next slide.
In 1812, the brothers Grimm, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. They were German scholars, linguists, and folklorists renowned for their groundbreaking efforts to preserve folk traditions. They are best known for their collection of fairy tales, which has had a lasting impact on global literature and culture. Next, please. In 1812, the brothers published their first collection of fairy tales, titled Kinder und Hausmärchen, Children's and Household Tales. This compilation featured 86 stories, many of which were gathered from oral storytelling traditions and local folklore. Some of the most iconic tales included in this initial publication were Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, and Hansel and Gretel. Next, please. The Grimm's brothers aimed to document and preserve these stories as part of Germany's cultural heritage. But the tales also carried universal themes that resonated across cultures. Over time, the collective was revised, expanded, and, and refined, ultimately growing to include over 200 stories in subsequent editions. These tales, with their blend of enchantment, danger, and moral lesson, have become some of the most beloved and enduring stories in history.
So next is Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus is an 1818 Gothic novel written by an English author named Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Next slide please. So Frankenstein tells the story of Victor Frankenstein, a young scientist who creates a sapient creature in an unorthodox scientific experiment. Shelley started writing the story when she was 18, and the first edition was published anonymously in London on January 1st, 1818. When she was 20, her name first appeared in the second edition, which was published in Paris in 1821. First, let me tell you how the creation of the story came to be. Shelley traveled through Europe in 1815, moving along with the River Rhine in Germany, and stopping in Germersheim, which is 17 kilometers away from Frankenstein Castle, where, about a century earlier, John Conrad Dippel, an alchemist, had engaged in experiment. She then journeyed to the region of Geneva, Switzerland, which much of the story takes place. Galvanism and occult ideas were topics of conversation for her companions, particularly for her lover and future husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley. So, and because of her wondrous exploration and imagination, Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus became a landmark work of Gothic and Romantic literature, exploring themes of human ambition, creation, and the consequences of scientific experimentation. It is often considered one of the earliest examples of science fiction blending Gothic horror with romantic ideals. Next slide, please.
Ano ba? Next slide mo ulit. Hello. Ayun. John Keats' third book of poetry was published in 1820. In these poems, he has included some of his most famous works, which is Ode on a Grecian Urn and Ode to a Nightingale. It is through this that the author explores the deeper of beauty, morality, and empa- empira- emperor nature of existence. Keats tries to project the personal struggle of his existence. In these works, by thinking inspiration from classical art and nature, these works were highly influential to Romanticism, with their emphasis on emotional depth, individualism, and the power of imagination. It was also Keats' strong beliefs in the significance of art exposure with the consequence of beauty during the Romantic period. Next slide, please. Next, please. In the year 1820, promotions unbound the lyrical drama of Percy Bysshe Shelley, inspired by the great Greek myth of Prometheus, has become synonyms with revolution, and it signifies the in- inalienable rights of the messages. As it purpose freedom, it has also constructed the romantic ideas with the belief in hopes, emasculation, and the power of arts to transform the poem. Immortalized quite a number of poets of latter days as it featured the romantic movement in the focus with respect to creativity, individualism, and social change. Next slide, please. Next, please.
So now we proceed to mid-18th century, starting with 1830, where a French artist named Eugène Delacroix. So the painting here is the famous painting that created by Eugène Delacroix. The title is Liberty Leading the People. The painting was done after the 1830 revolution that lasted 3 days, or shall we say 3 glorious days. So what is the main reason or the starting point of this revolution? How did Eugène Delacroix come up with this impactful painting? So after the fall of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1814, Louis XVIII became a king, which the monarchy comes back from France again, and this occurrence was called Bourbon Restoration. Later on, the tricolored French flag we saw here on the Napoleon painting was changed into white flag, or what we call Bourbon flag. Later on, King Louis XVIII died in 1824 and was replaced by Charles X, and he served for 7 years from 1824 to 1830. And the revolution started as King Charles X made a decision in July 25, 1830 to disband parliament and suspending liberty of the press, which meant to calm citizens of France, but rather it angers the French citizen. The revolution then motivates Eugène Delacroix, as he said from his letter to his brother, I have undertaken a subject, a barricade, and although I may have fought for my country, at least I shall have painted for her. It has restored my good spirit. So it leads into this painting titled Liberty Leading the People. It is the only painting that
we can say describe the overall history of French Revolution and Romanticism. So the central character of the painting is a woman itself, or the personification of liberty, surrounded by hundreds of men following her lead. She wear long yellow dress and exposed breasts. So let's elaborate the image of the liberty. First, the woman elevates the tricolored French flag high, symbolizing the revolution and the fight for freedom. Next, on her head, she wears red Phrygian cap, symbolizing long-standing freedom since Roman times. And on her left hand, or which our right side, she holds a large musket with a bayonet attached in its muzzle. And lastly, as we notice, the Liberty shines bright like a diamond in this painting. In her, it has a unknown light source which highlights the central female figure representing liberty. In her surroundings, there are men surrounding her. First is the two men at the left side. One is a bourgeois man wearing black coat, top hat, and holding a shotgun. On his left side, a man wearing ruffled white shirt, beret, beret on his head, holding a briquette saber in his right hand and pistol to his waist. And on the right side, there is a young boy figure handling the two pistols as a child and wear black beret or what they call polish on his head. And on his right side there is a Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And on the under of the young boy, there is a two dead men wearing military clothing, and lastly there is a half-naked man with only one sock on his lifeless feet. Ay, ito pa pala. Tapos ito yung sa under of the Liberty, there is a figure crawling into her and looking up to her like a figure of salvation. So, Liberty Leading the People depicts the July French Revolution in time where all people from all types of social classes brought together for freedom and revolution to overthrow King Charles X. It symbolized the French uprising against monarchy. So, the tricolored French flag here holds high in this painting. It indicates the uprising of the France. Next.
Joseph Mallard William Turner. Next po. In 1844, J.M.W. Turner or Joseph Mallard William Turner, a renewed English Romantic painter, completed his masterpiece Rain, Steam, and Speed, The Great Western Railway. This painting is more than just a beautiful depiction of a train. It's a powerful commentary on the Industrial Revolution and its impact on the world. Next, please. Rain, steam, and speed capture this transformative moment in the history. The train symbolizes the speed and power of industrial progress, and the painting depiction of the locomotive racing through the countryside convey the sense of motion and energy associated in the era. The blending of steam and rain creates a dynamic atmosphere that reflects the intersection of nature and industry. Through his masterful use of light and color, Turner emphasizes the beauty of this new age while also prompting reflection on its effect on the natural world. In this way, the painting served as both a celebration of technological advancement and a contemplation of its consequences. Next.
As of the late 19th century, on year 1850s, the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, including Dante Gabriel Rossetti and John Everett Millais, revives the romantic themes in art. Next, please. Dante Gabriel Rossetti Gabriel Charles Dante Rossetti, generally known as Dante Gabriel, Rossetti was an English poet, illustrator, painter, translator, and member of the Rossetti family. He founded the Preraphaelite Brotherhood in 1848 with Williams Hullman and John Everett Millais. Next, please. As of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, PRB, later known as the Pre-Raphaelites, was a group of English painters, poets, and art critics, founded in 1848 by William Hallman Hunt, John Everett Millais, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Michael Rossetti, James Collinson, Frederick George Stephenson, and Thomas Wallner, who formerly a seven-member of Brotherhood, partly modeled on the Nazarene movement. Next, please. As of the Sir John Everett Millais, 1st Baronet PRA, and born in August 1896, was an English painter and illustrator who was one of the founders of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. He was a child prodigy who, aged 11, became the youngest student to enter the Royal Academy schools. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was founded at his family home in London at 83 Gower Street. Next, please. Next, please. The group continued to accept concepts of history, paintings, and mimesis, imitation of nature as central to purpose of art. The Pre-Raphaelites defined themselves as a reform movement, created a distinct name for their form of art, and published a periodical, The Gem, to promote their ideas. Next, please.
Now let's talk about how late 19th century writers moved towards a new style called realism, practiced by authors such as Flaubert, Dostoevsky, Twain, Maupassant, and Ibsen. From 1860 to 1914, America underwent significant changes that deeply influenced its society and literature. The Civil War, industrialization, and urbanization were key factors that shaped this era. First is the impact of the Civil War. The Civil War, 1861 to 1865, profoundly impacted American society. It ended slavery and led to the Reconstruction era, where the nation struggled to integrate formerly enslaved people into society and rebuild the South. The war also shifted the economic balance from agrarian South to the industrial North, accelerating industrial growth and urbanization. Next is industrialization. Post-Civil War, America saw rapid industrialization. The period, known as the Industrial Revolution from 1870 to 1940, was marked by the expansion of industry such as steel, oil, and railroads. Technological innovation like telegraph, telephone, and electric light transformed daily life and economic activities. This industrial boom created a new class of wealthy industrialists, a growing middle class, and a vast working class facing difficult conditions. Last is the urbanization. As industry grows, so did cities. Between 1870 and 1920, millions of people moved from rural areas to urban centers, and many immigrants arrived from Europe. This urbanization changed the social fabrics of America, creating diverse communities and new social challenges. Cities become hubs of economic activity, culture, and social change, influencing the themes and setting of literary works. Now we're done talking about the history of changes that deeply influence its society and literature. Let's talk let's now move on to the key characteristics of realism in American literature. Realism in American literature focuses on representing everyday life and the complexities of human experience. Here are the main features of realism. Detailed settings. Realist writers aim to portray settings with great detail and accuracy, often depicting urban environments, rural landscapes, and special regions authentically. This attention to detail helped readers visualize the world as it was. Second is the complex characters. Character development was central to realist literature. Characters were depicted in their full complexity with, with realistic motivations, flaws, and ethical dilemmas. Realist writers explored characters' interaction with their social environment, emphasizing how class upbringing and personal history shaped their lives. Third is the plausible events. Realist novels focused on plausible events and everyday occurrence, rather than sensational dramatic plots. This approach made the stories relatable and credible, reflecting the true nature of life and society. Last is the middle class life and social issues. Realism often highlights the lives of struggles of the middle class. Social mobility, economic hardships, and moral dilemmas were common themes. Realist writers use their work to comment on social issues and encourage readers to reflect on the changes and challenges of contemporary issues. Next. Mark Twain was an American humorist, novelist, and travel writer. Was born on November 30, 1835 in Florida, Missouri, US. Mark Twain is one of the most famous writers of American realism, known for his humor and sharp social observation. Twain often critically examined human nature and society. Next. One of his famous novels for its realistic use of regional speech and honest look at the issues like race and freedom is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. This classical novel follows the adventures of Huck Finn and a runaway slave named Jim as they travel down the Mississippi River. The book is known for its rich depictions of Southern society and critique of racism and pretense. Until today, Mark Twain is best remembered as one of the great American realism writers of all time. Next, please. How does Romanticism affect the significance of American literature? The long term effects of Romanticism on American literature are significant, laying foundational principles that influence subsequent movements like Transcendentalism and Modernism. As writers embrace Romanticism ideals such as individuality and emotional expression, they paved the way for the future authors to delve into psychological complexity and social critique. The legacy of Romanticism can be seen in how later literary works continued to explore themes of identity, nature roles of shaping human experiences, and responses to societal changes, ultimately shaping modern American literary landscapes. Next. In conclusion, Romanticism's global influence reshaped literature and art worldwide. Its emphasis on emotion, nature, and individuality spread through colonial education, translation, and cultural exchanges, inspiring national revivals and independent movements. The movement's ideas resonated across the culture, blending with local tradition to create unique expressions.
And finally, we would like to conclude our presentation with a quote from William Wordsworth. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origins from emotions recollected in tranquility. And that's all. Thank you.